Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollands High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Hey everybody, we are back in a tutorial for our inventory. Today we're going to go over how to set up a pickup item so that we can actually pick something up and add it to our inventory. You can see right here, this is our demo project, and we do have our inventory up here in the 0 position of our screen. And we've got 10 slots by 5, and you can see I have 2 items in there. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and exit this thing. And I'm inside of my object game, inside the draw event here. And we have our inventory case set up. And all this stuff is what we did last time. If you haven't quite done this part, make sure you go ahead and watch that video. You'll be a little bit lost. So here we are. Here we have our code for this. And before we get kind of cracking away at setting up the pickup item, I want to put a background on our inventory slot. So right now, if we run the game and you look at it, it's sort of a transparent. It's hard to see. So I'm going to put a background there. To do that, we're going to just draw in another rectangle. So to start drawing the background, I'm going to go up here, and it's important that when you draw your background that you do not do it inside of this for loop. And you'll see why in just a second. But above this for loop, I'm going to go ahead and put a comment that says draw inventory. And then above this, I'm going to make a comment, and this is going to be draw inventory background. Now before I draw the background here, I'm going to have to create an x1, y1, x2, y2 for the background. And the reason for that is the math that we did here will not necessarily work for the background piece for 2 reasons. One, this happens after the background is drawn. And these slots get repeated for every slot iteration. And we don't want the background to be drawn multiple times. So we're not going to use this piece. Instead, we're going to create a new one. We're going to do var, we can do x1, and this is going to be our slot size in the x and our slot size in the y, but we're also going to take that and we're going to do a little bit of math against the number of slots that we have. So I'm going to do inventory position x. The next one's going to be var y1, and that's going to be the inventory position y. Var x2. This is going to be the inventory position x. That's going to be plus. I'm going to put some braces here, or parentheses, sorry. The number of slots in the x times the slot underscore size x. So what this is going to do is it's going to start in our inventory position, and then in our next position over, it's going to add to that position the number of slots times the slot size. So in this case, we have 10 slots times 32, so that's 320 pixels over. Or the same thing for the down. So var y2 inventory position y plus num slots y times our slots size y. You might be wondering, well, if we have this here and we have this here, and these variables are the same, x1 and x1 and y1 and y1, will this mess up this? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is, as the parser goes ahead and reads the code, it's going to read this, and then whatever we put here will do whatever's underneath it, and then when it gets down here, all of these variables will get reassigned new values and then be passed over to here. So by time this information gets here, it's going to get reset. So no worry, no harm there. We're going to do the actual background piece, which is the draw rectangle, and then x1, y1, x2, y2, and we have our last part, which is an outline. If we say true, it'll give us the border, but we don't want a border. We want the whole thing to be filled, so we're going to say false. Before we do this piece, however, we also want to change the color, because right now if we do this, it's going to be white, and it's going to be white on white, and you won't be able to see very well. So I'm going to do a draw set color, and this is going to be C underscore, and you can pick a color from any of these here. I'm going to pick a dark gray. That's going to be my background for my, or the color for my background piece. And since we've changed the background color here, we do need to reset it back to white for our stuff here. So you can do that at any moment. You can do it right after this, which is fine, or you can do it inside of the for loop. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go ahead and do a draw set color C underscore white. So it's going to draw the border as a dark gray, or draw the background as a dark gray, and then the color is going to get reset, and then it should draw it white again. Let's go ahead and test that, see if it works. Okay, push the button, and we have a dark gray background that fills in, which is great. All right, go ahead and close that. I'm also going to move the inventory over. So we use this inventory position X and position Y. This gives us the power of moving our inventory anywhere we would like in our room. So if I go into my create event here, and I have my inventory position X and Y set to 0, that's the top corner of the screen, I'm going to try to position it somewhere in the middle. Now, it is drawing it from the top corner of that rectangle. So knowing that, my rectangle's 320 pixels across, and my screen display comes up as 1024. So if I were to put it directly in half at 512, that means that my inventory is going to start at 512 and then extend over. And if we do that, you'll see it here. So I'll do 512. So that's halfway across the screen in the X, and then 384 is halfway down because it's 768 down. And you will see that it pushes the inventory in the middle over. And there it is. So there it is in the middle and then pushing over. To center this, I need to take my inventory size, kind of cut it in half, and then subtract that from the total distance across. So if I do 512 minus, what do we have? We have 320, so half of that is what, 160? So that gives us 352 across. So I'll do 352. And if I want it to be dead center down, I can take the height and subtract how tall my inventory is. So that'll be 5 times 32, which was half of 320, so that's 160. And then half of 160 is 80, so subtract that from the 384, which would be 304. So this would be 304. And that should give us an inventory based on this particular size in the middle. And there we go. We have an inventory parked right in the middle of our screen, which is awesome. Now, if your inventory is bigger than mine, all you gotta do is take the total size, divide that by 2, and then subtract it from the position on the screen in the middle of your screen. Okay. So there's that. Now we're going to set it up so we can add items to our inventory by picking them up. So let's start with resetting, since we're inside of our create event anyway. Our inventory array, we're going to go ahead and make sure it's set to empty. And then these 2 items that we added here, we're going to go ahead and take those out. We no longer need them because we're going to add those when we pick them up. Another thing we're going to take out is in here in the offset. I was pretty sure we were going to use this, but I decided not to use these since we're using the inventory position as our offset. We didn't need it, so I'm going to go ahead and snip those off. Okay, just cleaning up the things that you don't need. Anytime you have variables that you're not using, it's good just to get rid of them. They take up memory, and memory is space, and space is latency, and all that good stuff. So, all right, so I'm going to create an object. Oh, we already did. We have the object item pickup. So that's already there. Let's go ahead and put some code in here. Add event, create. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and name this initialize variables, usual thing. We're going to set the image index of our item pickup. That's going to get the image index of whatever our sprite is. So our sprite is this SPR underscore sprite list thing, right? But remember, we put every single one of those into an enum. So I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to item list, because that's our enum. You can see it right down here. Dot, and then whatever you want to put in here. So we can put, for now, we're just going to put a temporary item. I'm going to give it a, I'll put a sword. Then we're going to do image speed. We're going to set that to 0. The reason we're setting the image speed to 0 is so they don't flip all of the images at once. We saw that in the previous video. Okay, and that should be good for now. Right, so now we're going to go ahead and just drop this item in the room. Anywhere is fine. I'm going to take it and I'm going to put this item here. This next one, I'm going to put a couple of them. I'll put like this one there. I'll do there. This one, I'll go here. And to be special, put that one there. Alright, so now it looks like I have 3 little potions, right? But you can actually change these by modifying the creation code. So if I click on this one, I can go to the creation code here. And I can do image index is equal to item list dot, let's see, I'm going to do this one as a potion. And you might think, well, it already is a potion. Well, it's only a potion because that's the first one that's on the list. I have to actually set it to be a potion in here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And to kind of show you what I mean, I went ahead and set this one as a potion, but if you remember just a second ago, inside of the object itself, we set it to be a sword. So when I run this, we should see 3 swords and 1 potion. And we do. 3 swords and 1 potion. So I'll leave this one as a sword. This one I'll make a key. I'll say key. I'll do this one as a bow. This one I will mark it as a sword. Even though it's already a sword, I would just rather have it in here. This is really for my own sanity. When I come back and I have to modify this particular object and open up the creation code, I'll be like, ugh, why is it not in here? And then it takes me a second to remember that it was somewhere else. So, and one more item, since we have another on our list anyway. I'll go ahead and make this one the arrows. So, arrow. And if I run it, close that. You should have 5 wonderful objects. There they are. Now I can't do anything to them yet, like if I step on it, nothing happens. but that's fine. We'll go ahead and fix that in just a second. So if you've done this in GameMaker 1, the code is really the same. Most of it looks pretty similar. I'm going to go ahead and go down to scripts here, and I'm going to add a new script. We're going to use this to determine what's going to happen to our inventory whenever we touch the potions. And call this add_item. And in here, I'm going to give this a little bit of a title. I'm going to call this add_item, and then inside the parentheses here, I'm going to write item. It's just common practice that inside of a script or a function that you give it a comment that describes how it's going to be written in code, and that's what it will look like there. So this add item is going to take whatever item is inside the little parentheses here, and it's going to run a check to see if there's space in the inventory. If there is, it puts the item in the inventory. If not, then it just stays outside. So the first thing we need is the loops for our inventory. So we're going to do a for loop, and same deal as before. We did the var ix. That's going to start at 0. The ix is going to be less than the number of slots x. But we can't just write number of slots x here because we're inside of a script, and GameMaker has no idea who this particular variable belongs to. So we have to give the address of where this variable is. That address just happens to be inside of our object game. So I'm going to do obj_game dot number of slots x, and then ix plus plus. Same deal. I'm going to make a new one of these. So this is going to be var iy. That's going to be 0. Iy is going to be less than the object game dot number of slots in the y, and then iy plus plus. Once we get inside this loop here, we're going to check to see if the item or if the slot of the inventory is empty. And all we're going to do is say if global dot, because we made our inventory a global variable, so global dot inventory, and you can see it here popping up. And we use the square brackets because we are inside of an array. So ix, iy. So if our global dot inventories positions or slots here are equal to item list dot empty. So if our inventory is empty, then open brace, closing brace, global dot inventory ix, iy will get whatever is in our item list. In this case, we're going to pass an argument to this particular script here. GameMaker has a bunch of built-in ones, so we're just going to use arguments. If I spell it correctly, argument. See how it turns green here? This is a GameMaker built-in, and what happens is you have up to 16 arguments you can choose from. I think it's what the limit is 16. You can do argument like this and put a number on it, like argument 0. You can do that way, or you can do an argument bracket 0 as an array. Either one is perfectly legal in GameMaker. They more or less amount to the same thing. But I'm going to go ahead and do that as argument 0. After we put this item in the inventory, we need to exit this loop. In order to exit this loop, we have to do a return. So the difference between a break and a return. So you've seen me use breaks, and you've seen me use, I think you've seen me use returns before. And what each one of these do. Well, a break will break out of or exit the first set of braces here. So like this if statement has this body from brace to brace. This break says stop this piece, but continue running the next piece above it. A return says stop running all of this and just be done with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to return, and we're going to stop this whole thing and report a value to the system, to GameMaker. So we're actually going to return, so open parenthesis, close parenthesis, a value of 1. This tells GameMaker that everything completed and that it's good. If you just remember, like from like binary code or anything like that, 1 is true, yes, and all that good stuff. 0 would be false or no. So if all this goes through and it works, it returns 1 and exits this entire thing. If not, we're going to get down to the bottom of the loop here, and once GameMaker gets past the loop, it's going to check and it's going to find this little thing out, and this is the return 0. So what'll happen is it'll come through and it'll get down to here, and if this particular loop goes through and this piece is not true, okay, so in other words, we're all out of empty slots, this part will not get to happen, and then it'll get down to here and it'll exit and it'll say, nope, nothing happened. So that's how we can check if it was successful or not. I'm going to go ahead and exit this piece. I'm going to go to my add item here, and I'm going to add an event, step event. In my step event, we are going to pass this particular add item function. So let's do, we'll call this update item pickup. And again, this is the very same stuff that you've probably seen from like a GameMaker 1 kind of deal. A lot of the code's the same. We're just going to check and say if add item, and then in here we're actually going to pass the image index. So image index. And the reason for that is this image index is going to actually pull from whatever is inside this creation code. So inside of your game world, if you set this to itemless sword, then the image index is going to be itemless sword, and that's what's going to pop up in our list based off of our enumerator that we made. So if we run add item, it's going to check this, and then if it's successful, we want this to destroy itself. That way it's removed from the screen, but is added to the inventory. So instance destroy, there we go. So this will do that particular job, right? But we want this to happen only if we run into it, right? So, because if we run the game right now, all the items will just go poof and enter our inventory. And we can see that, like if I jump in, once I start the game, pretty much all of them items will just be gone. And if I open the inventory, they'll be there. So all the items are gone, I open the inventory, and there they are. Great, right? But we only want that to happen if we touch one of the items. So, simple situation. If place meeting x, y, and since we're inside the pickup item object, we're going to be checking if we collide with the player. So obj_player. So if we hit the player, then we're going to run this piece of code. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this. Just like that. So now if we jump and hit the item, we can pick them up and they will be added to our list. Dink. And I have an item in my inventory. Dink. Now I have a potion. And so on and so forth. But what happens if our inventory is full? Well, nothing. It won't add anything. We can actually check that if I go down to, if I go to the object here, object game, and I go into the creation code for our inventory. And right now we have it set it to empty. Let's go ahead and set it to, I don't know, I'll fill it full of potions. And we run it. Now, since I'm full of potions, there's nowhere for the item to go. So if I step on this, nothing happens. It can't go into the inventory. So what we should do is we should tell the player when the inventory is full. So let's go over to our object item pickup, and we're going to report to the screen a message for when the inventory is full. To do that, let's open up our creation code here, and we're just going to go ahead and do a little message here. So we're going to say error message. I'm going to set that to false. Now GameMaker does have some built-in functions for creating error messages, but I'm just going to make one. I'm going to go ahead and do a step event here, and inside of here we're just going to do an if statement just above this piece. We're going to say if no error message. If no error message, go ahead and wrap that. We're also going to do a completion here, so if this part where it says if we've added the item here, this is where we're going to report if it failed. So if this part cannot pass, right? So if add item runs its check and it finds that the slot is actually full, then it's going to exit this particular, or it'll, in reality, it'll skip this if statement and it's going to go down to this else statement. It's going to say else, and we're just going to set the error message to true. So error message true. So show errors that'll be true, and we should have a timer for this thing, otherwise it'll stay on the screen, but we'll go ahead and skip to the next part. We'll say add event. We're going to draw event here, and this is just going to say show error message, so show error message, or you can say inventory full message, whatever. So we're going to do a little rectangle to kind of show where the box is. So let's do a var x1. This is going to be the x location of the actual object, and we're going to try to center it here, give or take, you know. I'll say x minus 25 var y1 y minus 25 var x2, it's going to be x plus 25, and then var y2 will be y plus 25. So what this will do is it should create a box starting at the object's middle, and it should draw it left and right of that box there. Or actually, in our case, it's actually drawn from the top corner, so it'll be a little bit off, but we'll see. We'll have to adjust. And then we'll do the draw set color. This is going to be C underscore. I'll do dark gray again. And then draw rectangle. This is going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. And then we'll do false, because this part's going to actually be the background part. And I'll go ahead and title this. So this will be, we'll say message background. I'm going to copy this. This will be message border. I'll do this as just gray. True. And then the message. So paste that in again. So this will be the message. I'm going to change the font color. This is going to be C underscore white. And then I'm going to do the actual text. So draw text. I'll do X, Y. And then whatever message. So the string is whatever message is going to be there. This is going to be inventory full. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run it just to see. This will show up regardless of anything else. Oh, before we run this, we need to tell this to draw itself. So at the very top here, whenever you modify a draw event, always tell it to draw itself. So draw self. So there's our little error box. You can kind of see it above. and you have the inventory full. You can see that inventory full it doesn't fit inside the box. So I'm going to make the box a little bit bigger. It looks like, if I had to guesstimate, about 100 pixels or so. Because this is 25, 25. So this is 50 across, and it's a couple of these, so I'd say about 150. Okay. So we'll do X, I'll say minus 10. And I'll put minus 13-ish. And I'll make these boxes make them a little bit longer. So I'll do 125 across. It probably doesn't need to be as tall, so I'm going to reduce it some. So we'll do Y minus 12 plus 12. So it'll be a narrower box. There we go. That's a cute little thing. And if you want, of course, you can move this, up and to wherever by modifying these positionings here. Anyway, so that's going to pop up, and then we only want this to appear when the error message trigger is true. So I'm going to wrap this into some code here. So I'm going to say if, and I'm going to do a brace. I know, I didn't put anything in the if, don't worry. We're going to put that in just a second. I'm going to wrap all that. And then inside of this if, I'm actually going to have a timer. So I'm going to say timer. I will say greater than 0. So as long as the timer is greater than 0, this message will appear. And then for here, we're going to say if error message. If I can type. If there is an error message, we're going to shut it off. So in here, we're going to say error message will be false. No. False. And we're going to set the timer value. So timer, that'll be, we'll give it half a step. We'll do, or a step and a half, 45 ticks. So what will happen is the error message will trigger. It'll turn itself off, and it'll give the timer. And then this piece of this message will stay on the screen until the timer is done counting down. So once the timer finishes, it'll exit. But we need to tell the timer to run. So let's go back to our creation code here. Let's go ahead and create the timer. So we'll say timer is set to 0. And then in the step event, we'll have this run the timer. So we'll go down to the bottom. We'll say run message timer. So if timer is greater than 0, timer minus minus. It'll just count itself down. And that should do its job. Let's go ahead and run it. So when the game starts, we should not see the error message running. And then if I go to touch it, error message pops up. If I walk away, it goes away. Inventory full, inventory full. Now you could just take the timer off and just make it so that whenever you're touching it, it's true, and when you walk away, it disappears. To each their own. I thought the timer was kind of a cute idea here, but okay. So now we can pick up items and drop them. I'm going to go ahead and set my inventory object. So game object here, creation code. Let's go ahead and set our inventory back to empty. And one more final test before we close it up. And of course I can still pick up my items, and there it is. Alright, so that's how to create an inventory and set up some basic code to add the items to the inventory. In the next tutorial, we're going to go over how to set up the after that, we'll look into selecting an item, using it and dropping it, and of course equipping it or unequipping it. But that should wrap it up for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like it, you can always hit the thumbs up button, and I will see you guys in the next video.